Hey there. Okay, so here we have a nice standard low dome cabochon here. Setting that right there on my anvil because that is the nice flattest space that I can work with here. And I'm going to take my bezel wire and hold it up against it. See if it looks like it fits. And quite a bit of it actually hangs over the top of the cabochon. So the cabochon starts to curve in and then it domes way out like that. And I would say that my stone looks somewhat like that. Okay? So I want to confirm that because say, for example, this very high domed piece, this would not be an efficient wall to hold the stone down. So I'd put that aside, wait till I got some fatty, okay? And I want to take my bezel wire and kind of keep it, don't flatten it out, keep it in this kind of curve. This curve is sort of important to keeping the base flat and not having it kind of cuddle up on the stone. So what I'll do is I'll lay it flat down and I'll go against the curve that I already have. So curves around like this, I'm going to be working in this direction. So I got that down. And I'll pick a place to kind of anchor the end as I push my bezel wire around. And I try to keep the other end that's already in a kind of a loop. I'm going to keep that flat so that it doesn't ride up. I want it flat down on that anvil, or it'll actually not give you a very accurate description of the wraparound. It's got to be flat down, and the best way to keep this part flat down is to also keep this end flat down on my anvil like that. Then I'm going to overlap it, and I'm going to overlap it thicker than the width of my fingers. So I'm going to go around that stone by quite a bit. And then I kind of spend a little time just pushing inwards, just to make sure I got it. And then I pinch it between thumb and forefinger like that and pick it up. Generally the stone will drop out. Then I keep that space, I keep that spot like that. And I take a pair of shears and I cut it, not right at the end. I cut it about 3 millimeters or 2 millimeters in from the end. Like, uh-oh, I have a pair of shears that I probably should have sharpened. End up with a little piece of waste. Here it goes. Little piece of waste. Not a shame. That should fit. Now, we go back to the ring forming process, remember, where we take this and we kind of flatten the two ends out. And see how well they face each other. Now, because I used especially a wonky pair of these, it might be that these need a little bit of filing. Hold on. Here, did it off camera because you've seen filing, right? I think I did a demo on it. All right. I think I did a video and you had to watch me file. Here we go. Now, by pushing it in, here we go, in and then going over and pushing in and then going over and pushing in, I can then pull it apart and it'll spring action stay in place like that. Set that down on my soldering block and solder, all right? Okay, so there we have it. Here is my bezel. I'm gonna get some flux, put it on that crack, and gonna get some, what flavor? Hard solder. Let's see, I have a piece here. And a piece of lint. There we go. Here we go. Uh-oh, I have lost it. I'll knock it off. There it is. There's the piece. Pick up your gapped piece and set it on top. Just like that. And get everything covered. Here we go. There we go. And I'm going to turn it down just a little. It's so tiny. You can fry these up pretty quick. It won't be pretty if they get melted. And it's getting close because the flux is going clear. And the flux is going clear. And almost there it went. Okay. Soldered. We've soldered our piece and now we're back on the anvil. So here's my piece. There is, if you can see, focus, no, okay, not a lot of focus. Oh, there you go. You can kind of see the blob of solder. The blob of solder has got to be reduced ever so slightly. One of the ways that I tend to do that is just with a little piece of old-fashioned sandpaper. And I will take a little bit of it off on this side. And it's got a little work to do. I'll work on that. And it looks like it's pretty gumpy on the inside too. Oh, I gotta work on that. Then the next thing I will do, lay this down flat on the anvil, because if you run your finger along the bottom, you'll find sometimes there's a little bit of a burr on unevenness. That's when I lay this down and I do a little sanding like this until I get that absolutely right. Lots of stuff to do. Then the next thing I do is I'll take out my cabochon, set it down on the anvil, and I will push this piece over the top. Try to get it flat to the anvil. And after I get it flat to the anvil, I gotta rub along all my edges to make sure that the pieces work hardened into place around the shape of that object. Sometimes there's a little warping going on and you can correct that by putting it down, putting it flat, and giving it a rub. You also might find that you might be possibly a little bigger than you thought you were. There's a little bit of gappage. Sometimes that means I need to stop, cut it, do it again. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes I can just go ahead. You'll have to make those decisions yourself, whether or not 'tis better to cut and redo and not be disappointed later after a lot of work and then a lot more cleaning, or whether you just go ahead and do it, okay? So here's my piece. It's in the round there. I need to do a bit of sanding. I'll be right back. Hello, I just wanted to show you. Remember I told you to get those sanding discs? This is what they're good for. The cleaning up of solder on a very tiny bezel. Foot pedal. This is 220. And let's getting into frame. Wow, that's hard, but I'm trying to. There. Much thinner, much more cleaned up. I'll have to do that on the inside too. Okay, I got my stone here. I've burnished my bezel just as I said I would, all the way around, so that when I pick this up, it's in that shape. And I gently set it down on the plate, take the stone away, and I start to put my pieces of solder down. Now I cut about 10 of them. If you can see, They're not tiny, okay? In this particular case, I can put them all around on the inside. I barely have enough room on the outside. So I probably would be smarter to put them on the outside. Yeah, I would. Put them on the outside. Oops, this one says no. Let's put them on the outside instead. Just because there's not a lot of space to aim your torch tip at out there. And it's an oval. Ovals tend to like to be heated from the inside. There we go. In big circles. So, notice how large these pieces of solder are. They're actually quite a bit larger than when you would sweat solder. That is because what we're going to do is heat this bottom plate and get it to respond to the heating of the solder and pull that solder around that circle underneath that crack underneath my stuff. So I also want to push my bezel down because I want my pieces next to the wall of bezel. I do not want them underneath. That would be a travesty. I'll show you a little description of that. And I take my flux. Don't forget your flux. I put it, paint it around so that it goes into that crack on the inside. Really, I can just set it up next to it and it tends to flow underneath. Oop, I can see it flowing. And then I got to make sure that my pieces of solder are not underneath, but close as they can possibly get. That kind of caused the wall to float up slightly as it's very lightweight. I'm just going to push these pieces around. Push, push. Doodly-doo. Oh, that's nice. And make sure each piece of solder has a little bit of flux on top of it. That can be done quite easily with this wet stuff. Don't so over wet it. So I'm going to give it some time to dry. A quick description of why we do what we do with solder and why it falls underneath the line is this. Here's my wall with the glass jar, and on the outside are these little pieces of solder. Now when I heat them and they start to shrink down because the bottom plate is what is receiving all the heat, they will start to liquefy and form kind of a bubble. But this glass jar will sort of suck at them like a vampire, kind of like this. I'm going to show you with some red food coloring. You can kind of see that if each of those pieces liquefied, you could see how the solder gets drawn around that edge of that base. Just like that. Can you see the red line? It is called capillary action. It is the process by which a liquid gets dragged along a crack. It prefers that place. It feels a lot more comfortable. It's kind of like mice, how you have to put the traps against the wall in something cozy. Solder's a lot like mice. So here we're going to try to solder this. I'm going to gently come in with my heat. Maybe these little pieces of solder won't jump on me, but I bet they will. Let's see how they do that. Let's see if I'll get upset and have to turn off the video. No, I won't get upset. I'm kind of used to this. Anyways, after a while, all those feelings go away. And you start going, oh, typical. That's how it goes. Oh, so far nothing's even getting very desiccated. Oh, there we go. There's some bouncing. Ooh, that's a lot of bouncing. That's unacceptable bouncing. Sometimes there's acceptable bouncing. You see it. It's when it goes. But when it goes, I'm getting out of here, that's when it's trouble. Okay. Come on, guys, desiccate. And don't get too far from the wall. I want you right up there. Ooh, they're sort of deciding to take a sneak there. This one. Ooh, there. And that one. A little closer. That one's stiff. Okay. Now I go around. It is ready for me. See how crusty it is? It's crusty. So I'm going to go around and then inside, around, and then inside. Oops, I think I might have to actually give it a little more. There we go. Outside, inside, outside, inside. And this is because I eventually want to draw those pieces in. I don't want to draw them to the outside edge. I want to draw them right under that. So, to make sure I'm inside. But you'll notice, if I stay too long, that bezel wire will get kind of hot. I don't want that. So I'm going to back off and go to the outside, and then back into the inside. So what I'm doing is I'm shifting up. I'm shaking up where those pieces go. Oh, and I'm getting it to melt. Oh boy, there it goes. Okay, whoop. I got a little warm there. Inside. Come on. Oh, dang. I must have a gap over here because my solder didn't come anywhere near where I wanted it to. Oh, darn it. And this piece over here, I don't think it went, but maybe it did. Let's see. This edge, I think it has a little gap, because see how this little piece of solder went that way instead of that way? And I don't think I have enough solder on that side. So, part 2. Okay, so that's what I wanted to happen. I think what I got was that. Darn. Actually, it's all soldered. I just almost overcooked it. So anyways, it's all down. Now what I got to do is clean up all this. So I can use that rotating sander disc and clean all that up. And I can even clean this sort of messy thing that I did in here. That's down.